Yeah.
I would like to call to order this regularly scheduled meeting of the Ascension Parish Council on November 19th here in the courthouse in Ascension Parish in Gonzales. We have a lot of activity today, so we'll get started. Councilman Ogeron, would you please lead us in prayer? And if everyone will stand and remain standing for the pledge, please.
Everyone, please prepare yourselves for prayer. Lord God, we thank you for this wonderful day. It was a beautiful day today in Ascension, and it was a wonderful day for us to do your work as well as the work for the people of this parish. As I look out into the audience today, Lord, I know we are all your children, but today especially we have your children here that we are going to recognize. A fantastic group of young ladies who have been extremely successful through their hard work and due diligence, and we're so very proud of them, Lord. And we know that they have done so with your blessing. With that, I ask that we all say the same prayer that Christ asked us to say. Our Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done, on earth as it is in heaven. And give us this day our daily bread, as we forgive those who trespass against us. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. Amen. Obviously, that means I'm not Jesus.
You had a different version.
Thank you, everybody. Let's say the pledge.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Took good time.
Madam Secretary, Mr. Turner has not arrived yet. Everyone else is present. There are no additions tonight to the agenda. There is a public comment period. If you have an item on this agenda about which you would like to speak, 3 minutes is allocated at the appropriate time for you to do that. So if you would please go to the podium, get a red or a green card, fill that out and direct it to Cinnamon. She will get it to me, and you will be called upon to speak at the appropriate time. Item number 5 on our agenda is presentations. And tonight, we have a really special one. So I would like to ask Councilman Lawler to help us to recognize the Ascension Outlaws baseball team. And we are absolutely thrilled that you all are here.
Okay. Well, I tell you what, this is exciting. The Ascension Outlaws 2030, talk about make us feel old, thank y'all, 2030, is a USSA fast-pitch softball tournament team from Ascension Parish that enjoyed tremendous success in the fall of 2020. This team finished the fall season ranked number 1 in the state of Louisiana and number 3 in the nation in power rankings, accumulating a record of 30-2 and finishing first place in 6 tournaments for the season. 6-0. Do you get any rings for that? Yeah. Oh, yeah. Everybody's got some rings for that. We're going to want to see those later on. This group of girls were successful on the field because of the work each and every one of them put in during practices and at home with their parents. They learned to play with poise, win with humility, and lose with grace, only twice though, and always shower the opposing teams with cheers of appreciation after a hard-fought game. A defining moment that will stay with this entire team forever happened at an event on October 17th and 18th weekend in Livingston Parish. The Lake Charles area had taken a direct hit from Hurricane Laura in August and suffered damage yet again 2 weeks prior to the tournament. Just before the semifinal bracket game, the Ascension Outlaws 2030 presented the LC Ice 8U team with a heartfelt poster board card and dozens of homemade cookies to let the team know that we had them in our hearts and appreciated them coming so far to play in this tournament. This small act of kindness showed just how special these girls are. Thank y'all. Y'all can stand up. And I'm going to give y'all each one of these. I'll call you by name, then you can go line up over there, and after that, we'll take a picture. See if these fingers work. Fiona Carmouche. Bailey Pruitt. Colby Enlow. Just like that. Holland Bowler. Lila Kate LeBlanc. Leah Trosclair. Ambry Duplessis. Mackenzie Cockburn. Andy Brignac. This is the best part. AK Faced. And now for the coaches who did a great job with these girls. I can't imagine these girls not being a handful. Lee Faced. Tim Bowler. Craig Brignac. Not here. Oh wait, I'll give you the jar, but it's a picture. A figment of imagination.
This would be for Andy.
Okay, thank you. Luke Trosclair. Oh, not here all. You get that? Thank you. Let's hear it for the Outlaws.
All right. Good job.
If I can get you
Yeah,
guys
let's squinch over.
I can do panoramic, but not that good.
Yeah, I definitely think you need to get it back.
You should have get in front, Chase. They won't see you. Oh, just want to make sure you seen that.
The shortest one. Travis gonna make it for the photo.
Put my name wall in front of here. Pretty in pink.
Okay, man, never mind. Let me get in front.
I don't think this shirt.
It's plum. I like it.
Maybe it is fuchsia, whatever that's
You heard
called.
that? Travis said it's not.
Yeah. he
Travis
was.
got it. I made it.
Congrats, girls. Travis will turn this into a tie mask and a punish. I can tell you what. She can get her job from daddy. All right.
Christelle Slaughter is due to be here. She is just a few minutes out. So, Mr. President, if you would like to do your president's report, and then. Oh, I'm sorry. I have someone else I need to recognize. Forgive me for that. So, Ms. Betsy Barnes is here, and she is with the Lieutenant Governor's office, and she has some things for these young ladies. Thank you, Aaron, for reminding me. Hi, Betsy.
Good evening. It's such a pleasure to be here to represent our Lieutenant Governor, Billy Nungesser, of the great state of Louisiana. And he wanted me to come and share a message for the girls and for their parents. Lieutenant Governor wishes that he could be here to personally bestow this honor upon you. But since he could not be here, he asked me to speak on his behalf, and it is an honor to do that. You girls have been the best and brightest athletes of your age group, not only in your city, not only in your state, but across the United States of America. So tonight, Lieutenant Governor Billy Nungesser would like to honor you by telling you that you are now all Louisiana ambassadors for the state of Louisiana. So wherever you go, wherever you play, you have been bestowed upon as a Louisiana ambassador. And so your state and your nation look to you to be examples of hard work, dedication, and great team spirit. So on behalf of the state of Louisiana, I just want to thank you for making us so proud, and I want to thank your parents for making this possible. You truly have spectacular daughters, and this is not the only honors they are ever going to receive. This is just the beginning, and I look forward to seeing what your future is, and the Lieutenant Governor is also watching you. So I'd like to give you your ambassador certificates individually, if that would be okay.
Absolutely.
If someone could honor the people that are absent, make sure that they get theirs as well. So I think this one's on top. Fiona Carmouche. Bailey Pruitt. Congratulations on becoming. Colby Enlow. Holly Bowler. Lila Kate LeBlanc. Leah Tronsclair. Ambry Duplessis. Mackenzie Cockburn. Governor Billy Nungesser. Anna Catherine Face. And just one more. I'm not sure she can be here, but we want to recognize her as well. Andy Brignac. Thank you all so much for everything you've done to make it possible for these girls to succeed at such a young age. You're outstanding. Thank you so much.
I'm sorry.
Good stuff.
I'm sorry. I don't know how.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you. Dear Billy.
I kind of want one of those bags.
Who wants a bag?
I'm
actually jealous. I want to be an ambassador.
That's what I'm saying. We're barely ambassadors of Ascension Parish.
Girls, we're about to talk about the budget if y'all want to stay.
Mr. President, would you like to begin your report, sir?
Thank you, Madam Chair, and good evening, council members. Yesterday afternoon, I had the pleasure of joining Lieutenant Governor Billy Nungesser and many state, parish, and local officials to the unveiling of a major rebranding of our Tourism Commission. Instead of the Ascension Parish Tourism Commission, we will now know it as Louisiana's Sweet Spot. As we all know, this really is the sweet spot of Louisiana. However, some people may not realize the importance of tourism. In 2019, Ascension Parish received just less than $170 million in tourism spending. These funds come from our hotels, restaurants, gasoline stations, retail shopping, and many more. This generated a total of $21.1 million in taxes, with a $5.91 million coming directly to Ascension Parish. Ascension Parish is the 10th out of 64 parishes in tourism spending that brought 65,000 people here, attending 165 events and generating 3,500 hotel stays. I really want to commend Tourism Director Tracy Browning, her staff, and the Tourism Commission for working with many groups and agencies to promote Ascension Parish to the world. At the event, I encouraged everyone to share their story of Ascension Parish, and so today, I'd like to share with you Ascension Parish's The Sweet Spot, a short video promotion, and you can also visit their website, visit lasweetspot.com, to learn more.
You begin your journey along that great, mythical, muddy, but beautiful Mississippi River that transports you back to the past. Sprawling sugarcane fields and ancient oaks wind their way in and out of view. Nestled between New Orleans and Baton Rouge lies a place steeped in 500 years of history. And when the moss-draped lanes lead to compelling stories waiting to be told, you know you've reached Louisiana's sweet spot.
What a great video. We're looking forward to encouraging future tourism. Obviously, it is important to our parish, important to the local economy. And we're just excited about the work that went into this promotion. And we're just excited to see where our tourism in Ascension Parish is going. So at this time, I would like to have Brian Martinez present the administration's report.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, Brian, welcome.
Hey, good evening, Chairwoman Casso and Council. Appreciate the opportunity. I got selected to come give a presentation on kind of what we're doing, where we're going. For those that don't know me, my name is Brian Martinez. I'm with the Systems Administrator here at Ascension Parish. They asked me to give me a quick overview of who I am and what we've been doing regarding data specifically. A little bit about me. I'm from St. Bernard Parish. Originally born and raised. I was in the U.S. military, have a degree in IT, and I have 20 years of experience in planning and engineering. 10 of it is in Florida. I worked for the city of Destin and Walton County in many different areas. Let's see. Make sure I'm in line with you. In the past 10 years here at the Ascension, I was a planner, I was a senior project manager, utilities director, before taking my current position of system administrator. Later this year, they asked me to kind of expand that role into a data manager to kind of concentrate on, with the goal to use data to drive results, measure productivity, and make cost decisions. I'd like to emphasize that data is, very important for many reasons. We can determine solutions, forecast actions needed that we need to take care of. We can compare deficiency scenarios, different scenarios. Historically, the parish, a lot of times, they do plans, they have studies, they have data, but no one ever goes back and compares it and does different things with the data. To make a difference in what we have done compared to what we've done in the past, we feel we need to do more measurables with the data, collect the data. We need data to evaluate the level of services provided and compare them to the goals. We need to change the culture and agree that data is, to drive decisions. We have to be put in a position to see the data and make it transparent, to see the shortfalls and discuss and implement solutions. Though there are many things that impact that, workflow and secondly, communication are two key things I think that affect getting things done in essence. The parish has all the ingredients. They have the people, the software, the hardware. We're just data rich but information poor. We just need to do more integration with the different softwares and hardware solutions, get more staff training, get systems in place that make it get policies and procedures in place to make it more sustainable and accurate, which comes to the second item, which is communication. Communication, I think, is key with these workflows. We need to, we have to identify and clearly give direction with workflows, documents, how to track the data, what to do, what we do with it afterwards. The old saying, garbage in, garbage out, is kind of the theme, I guess. You have to concentrate on that. The data reflects who we are. When we look at data, it can be interpreted many different ways, so it's definitely a reflection of who we are. I wanted to point out some examples of using technology that we've done in the parish that made big improvements. I know I'm hitting on utilities a little bit, but in utilities, we at one point when we took over HD1, took us a week to read meters. Using technology, we changed that to I think 2 or 3 days with a walk by. We later upgraded to a laptop, got it down to 4 hours. When we first took on HD, we didn't have any assets. We created a system in order to capture all the assets, put that in GIS. Engineering, when I was in that department, we put together using technology, different merge methods and things to get bid documents prepared in a lot more efficient manner. When I first started, the land development code was a mess. It was all over the place. We didn't even have ordinances with numbers, couldn't track with sections and things. So we've made a lot of improvements using technology as well as in technology, updating the 911 data. And I just wanted to point out that to do these things, I was involved with it, and it took a lot of resources, a lot of people, a lot of time. I don't know if you have any idea how long it takes to make those production changes, but it's definitely substantial. It's not easy to make change, not make things more efficient. It takes a lot of energy and resources to make things more efficient. That's why a lot of times it doesn't get done and you just get used to doing the same old, same old. One of the big things we're kind of going into now with data is real-time data. There's a lot of agencies out there that are now starting to produce data that we can use for our benefit, such as the river gauge data we use on a daily basis, especially with storms, traffic cameras, weather, things like that. There's also things we're going to be getting into is more 3D models, indoor mapping for our facility maintenance and management. And that's where I kind of come in with GIS. If you don't know what GIS is, a Geographic Information System, it basically takes data, tabular data, and then we put it into you're able to display it in a visual manner in which you can comprehend it or use it in a more efficient format. 2020, there was a lot of obstacles. This has been a very interesting year with everything from the coronavirus to hurricanes, and it's been nonstop. But I wanted to start pointing out some things that we did get accomplished this year. In February, we started integrating with our new work order. Last year, we started a new work order system called MyPermit Now. We worked on integration with our GIS system. At the time, we just have a work order system with a lot of data, and it's hard to get the data out of the system. We started with vegetation because there was a need there. We worked with that group to come up with a dashboard or a system in which it helps them see the data. The supervisors can narrow down their data based on date, by work type, by which crew is doing what and where. The other thing, once you start seeing the data visually, you see that there's problems when they start sticking out. You're behind, you got over 500 work orders. What's the issues? What's going on? That's when you start digging into workflows and how they operate. Why, if that's not satisfactory, what's the problem? Some of the issues we come across is, the workflow is complaint driven. Right now, we have no schedule. It's people call. That's why we have so many calls, and we jump around and do different things, different priorities from different areas of the parish. We're in the middle of collecting data in order to identify what those level of services are or should be and what resources we'll need in order to do that. With the ideal solution at some point, we'll be able to identify what those resources needs are for those level of services. If we want the grass cut in this area and have a real schedule that we can present or display on a website or whatever, so everybody knows what area they're cutting at and when they're cutting, instead of having to require them to call in and get the maintenance done. Another thing we implemented was integration with what's called WebEOC. It's a software system that our OEP uses with the state. This is to coordinate with all the different state and federal agencies for when there's some sort of event. There's an integration that took place this year that allows us to pull that data, put it in the GIS, and then again visualize it, make dashboards for the different agencies, such as 911 was appreciative of some dashboards we set up for them to be able to, instead of having to log into another system at the call center, they can keep this dashboard up, and otherwise they have to log in, find the table of data that they want, read through the data. It's just, again, another good use of GIS. Also, I guess in April, we rolled out a system for damage assessment. This gives us the option, or the ability, I should say, to do real-time if we have an event. Thankfully, we haven't had to use it, but it's set up so that we can go out and actually monitor what's going on live out in the field. As our field crews identify the damage, we can see a dashboard and see the work that's being done and identify where we need to put our resources and efforts to in what part of the parish. In June, I believe you guys in administration had asked for, we had a bunch of data. There was a contract for the roadside drainage improvements, and it was 2018, 2019, I think 2020 contract. So again, we used all that tabular data. You guys wanted to see it on a map. One of the things we did was take all that data, bring it into a GIS system and format, create an interactive dashboard so you can then see the when, where, who, how much, that kind of stuff, and narrow down that information. I think in the summer, there was another task that we were given to create a system to go identify and verify all the bridges in the parish. Again, using the tools that we have. Again, a lot of the stuff that you see, we make improvements. It's software we have already. We just have to set up and implement, train a few people, and take care of it. Our bridge inspectors went out and took pictures, got all the data. I also brought in all the data from DOTD. They went and did a full inventory of all the bridges, parish, state, off-system bridges, so that they can start doing additional inspections and evaluations. Another big thing we're working on kind of now, we're still tweaking it. We did a system for fleet. Currently, we didn't have a fleet manager. We have over 20 million invested in vehicles and 17 million invested in equipment. Until recently, we didn't have a fleet manager. We have a fleet manager now. I've been working with him, and he has a lot of obstacles as well. Again, getting down to the nitty-gritty, working with him and his workflows, we found out that there's not really a centralized management system for fleet, so we created at least something so he can go do the inventory and track everything, so we know where all the equipment is, what equipment belongs to who, which department. The old way they did inventories was, every year, I think pen and paper, they pretty much do the inventories. This is something that he can keep up with, so any given time they'll have an accurate inventory of how how many vehicles, or what their status is, who has what department, that kind of thing. Another interesting find is, they currently, they actually physically input fuel logs, so they have hundreds and hundreds of stacks and stacks of data. They have a person that doesn't complain, just types in all this data. That's something that we're going to have to change. The contractor that does the fuel is going to have to give us an electronic version to bring it into our data. The other thing, they're using an outdated work order system. We're going to be working on upgrading that. It has a database that has proprietary. I can't even access it without buying some more software. It doesn't integrate, of course, it's proprietary. It doesn't integrate with any of our financial, our GPS system, our work order system. It's, again, they have to duplicate efforts in fleet to be able to manage everything between GPS, work orders, financial. It's all duplicated. We want to get away from that, obviously. Another pilot thing we're working on at the moment is we have GPS on all the tractors. We also have installed a sensor for what's called the PTO, or the engagement of the blade. And using GIS technology, and without getting onto the background details, we're able to now be able to kind of track and see where the tractors have cut, where they haven't cut, and we can also plan out where they're going to cut. We can also do reports from that data, so we know how far that tractor has traveled with that engagement, so how far they cut, so we can start working on production and level of service benchmarks. But there's still some scripting and things we're working on to finalize that. I wanted to point out too, every year, we're always using GIS data. Again, I'm emphasis on this presentation is on data. We do a lot of work with the grants department to get millions of dollars in grant money every year. GIS, the data and the accuracy of it gets more and more important every year. Currently, we're also reviewing a system that works with our ERP system called Insights. It allows us to again visually see the data in our financial system. Right now, it's a database. It's not easy to get data out of it or see data. If you just want to see certain queries or which department has what, or how much the budget is, it makes it difficult. The Insights software is basically a dashboard that works like the GIS dashboards and allows you to be able to manage your departments really better, or easier, more efficiently. Taking it a step further, we're also pursuing a OpenGov part of that financial system. Tyler has a solution called Socrata. We've looked into other ones, but we kind of leaning towards that. We're going to give it a try, see how it works out, see if how the programming works out. But we're wanting to come back to you guys to talk about, having that solution for the citizens of the parish. The other thing that's on kind of our list of things to do that I've kind of started, but we have so many studies, plans. Over the years we've spent millions and millions of dollars, and the issue is where are they at? Who has them? What did we study? I've seen it where we've come back and studied. You find one study and they've studied actually 6 years ago. They may have done that same study. So it's we don't really have a centralized system in which to see what all was done on these areas, and that's one of the things that is a goal, is to put all these things into one system where we can see it and where we can filter it and search it, so that it doesn't get pushed under the rug, so to speak. A couple other things we're working on using live data is since we have access to other agencies with live data like DOTD, USGS. We're able to use GIS to create these dashboards that are custom to our parish. So the parish president, I can have a dashboard up to show those river gauges, and I can have it highlight different levels once they get to a certain level close to flood stage. The GPS we can set up for alerts, traffic cameras. We can tap into the DOTD traffic cameras as well as we have parish cameras. Things like that. Just those are some of the dashboard things that we're kind of working on. With all that, the administration is pursuing putting together kind of a little command center where we can kind of go inside the administration suite where we can start analyzing a lot of this data, make decisions, use it to make decisions, make improvements. There's lots of ways to use the data, but there's an area in the suite administration that they're set aside. We're getting some quotes and some design concepts for that now. The expectations have gotten higher, we feel. The citizens, like currently now, you can get a $10 pizza and watch it being cooked and delivered and trace it all the way to your house. So people are getting very used to having access at their fingertips. One of our kind of goals is to start utilizing this data, make it functional, and get it in the hands of the council as well as the citizens so that they can, if they want to rent a recreation room, they can use the app. If they want to report a pothole, they can use the app. That's kind of, those are some solutions by Tyler's My Civic and My Civic 311. Again, we're looking at other solutions, but this one's kind of at the forefront at the moment. And then, last but not least, there always is and always will be room for improvement. The potential is always there. I know this administration intends on utilizing data to drive decisions, be efficient, and in the end, provide better services to the parish. We're trying to do the greatest amount of good with affecting the greatest amount of people at the lowest possible cost. That's what's going on in the data world. So, do y'all have any questions?
Thank you, Brian. Gentlemen, are there any questions? Coach Thomas?
Yes, how long will it take before you can see the benefit of all of the stuff you just talked about? Approximately, I mean, I know you don't know, but.
So, it depends on what specific ones, but some of these we're wrapping up. Some of them we're wrapping up like by the end of this year. A lot of them are going to go into next year. So, you know, throughout the next year, a lot of these we're hoping to have solutions for a lot of those. So, like the libraries, they're all, that's like I was saying, that one slide, it takes a lot of time and effort to make any of these efficiency moves, but it takes training, it takes time, it takes effort. So it's a lot of moving parts, but it's, you know, it's top of our priority to get some changes done so we can use the data efficiently. So unless you have a specific one, I can maybe answer more specifically.
No, I just looking at all of them you
Yeah,
pertain to.
Yeah, so I was trying to show some of the things we have done this year and then moved into some things we're working on and some things that are going to go into next year. So, you know, at the end of next year, maybe we'll have get a lot of those done and have another plan. Because like I said, it's with technology, it's always changing. We can always make improvements. But it's time consuming. I can take one department and go through workflows and try to, you know, make it more efficient, but to implement, you could say it all day long, but when you go to implement any kind of change, it takes time and effort, obviously. So it's, you know, unless there's a team of additional people, I can do one at a time for now to try to make some improvements. But that's kind of the goal. We want to make efficiencies where they need it the most and work that way.
One other question, I had the fleet manager.
Yes.
At what point in time did he come on in this year?
He just recently came on, like weeks ago, I believe. I believe he's going to maybe not the next meeting, but the meeting after. I think he's next in line, correct, John? Yeah. To kind of come give you guys an update of what he's learned. He's made substantial improvements already. He came on. I've been working with him because he has a lot of stuff to get control of. I think it's been neglected for a little bit. So.
Thank you, Mr. Morgan.
Mr. President?
So one of the things that happened when we first started was we kept looking for data. And so we would say, okay, whatever project was coming up, we would say, okay, well, has this been studied before? And we would start asking around, and then they'd make calls, and then they would call somebody else, and sometimes we'd find it, sometimes we found out that the deliverable was never given to us. So we began the discussion with Brian about creating a infrastructure architecture so that all of that information goes into a single database that's searchable. So then when a council person has a question about the Sorrento pumping stations, y'all will have the ability to go do your research and go do those searches on everything that's been studied before, every project that's been made, all the money that has been spent on that particular item. And so this is going to be just a great resource for everybody so that we make better decisions and hopefully not do studies that maybe we've already done, or we can maybe get a reduced cost on a study because maybe 90% of that has already been done. And so this is just one of the items that we're looking at, and we're just in our infancy in creating this data concept to drive decisions, and that, of course, will be accessible by each council member, so y'all will have the opportunity to dig in and do your own research when necessary, as well as a continual thing. So we're putting this together, but it will all, it will be enhanced further, and continue to build a great resource for all of us to make better educated decisions.
Thank you, sir. Any other questions, gentlemen?
Just real quick.
Mr. Lambert?
I didn't want to send a false message out here, but, we was talking about all the studies. Let's back up a little bit. The state, we have to follow their guidelines when we start a project. I mean, we talking about a lot of stuff with pump stations, levees, different things. We're not having just studies just to keep having studies, and I appreciate you putting this all in perspective here, but there's someone up a little bit a step ahead of us that we have to follow to get these studies and produce the end product, what we're trying to do. So thank you, Parish President, for putting this together. And Brian, I'm sure we'll be able to use it because, out in the street, we hear, well, there's another study going on. There's another study. Let me tell you what, you have to have your stuff in order now. We just can't go out and dig a ditch like we used to. A lot of things changed. So thank you.
Yeah, and I'd also point out that, we say studies, and there's different purposes for different studies. So in some cases, you need a certain study to do one thing. They eventually can all work together.
Sure.
But it's not always one study for every solution, even when it comes to drainage and different things.
Sure.
The other thing I was going to point out, I think, Councilman Cagnati, you had called me one time, some time back, had mentioned about you kind of track stuff that is done in your council district, and just one of the GIS software and the tools. We have a lot of tools that are at our disposal. One of the things that I want to consider here in the future is getting with you guys, and if I can set up an interactive, council district boundary that you can do your own little thing if you want to track stuff that pertains to you. We have tools that could be beneficial as opposed to pen and paper and things like that. But that's something it's in the hopper of trying to reach out and at some point in the spare time to kind of, set something up for y'all individually. That would, if there's an interest. If there's not an interest, then obviously you don't need to do that. But there are tools out there that we can create that whatever you guys can use to benefit to do your jobs and your constituents. We can make it to where you can have an interaction with your constituents in your area and open it up to more to the public, so to speak. And it's called crowdsourcing, where they can give you input on different areas. There's a lot of potential. We have a lot of tools in the GIS toolbox, if you would. So if you ever have a thought or an idea or you see something, let us know. We can try to work towards implementing different things. But there's so much stuff that's out there available in technology. It's to make things more efficient. You just have to think about it and ask, I guess.
Thank you, Brian. Mr. Cagnolati?
Yeah, Brian, thank you. He walked me through, the old codger here. He walked me through and showed me how to use the GIS to get an update on work orders in my district. And it was phenomenal. You click on it, it tells you the type of project, the status. Sometimes it's complete, sometimes it's still in investigation, but it was phenomenal. I got a whole lot of information in about an hour that if I'd had made phone calls to each department to find out about transportation projects, drainage projects, vegetation projects, or whatever, I'd have been on the phone for hours. And in less than an hour, I had a complete idea of everything going on in my district. It was phenomenal. Thank you for that.
Oh, thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions, gentlemen? Hearing none, we thank you again, Brian, for an excellent presentation.
Oh, thank you.
Thank you, Brian.
Thank you.
So we have with us, again, our friend Christelle Slaughter, who has been working in the
Yes,
parish and will be presenting, excuse me, yes,
Is the president finished with his report?
I think he was.
You didn't say that.
I thought we had eyed each other and we were done. Thank you, but thank you for helping me to make sure I don't cut the parish president off. Thank you very much.
Yeah, well, I got a question.
Oh, I'm sorry, please, go right ahead,
President report, if I may.
please.
I decided that I looked at this for a bit, and I was told in September, the last meeting of September, and I think that the employees of this parish deserve a raise. The raise that was said that they was going to give by the president, well, no, not by the president. This was by Mr. John Diaz. The last meeting, he advised that the raise would go in effect or be in effect before Thanksgiving. If I can recall, you go back in the tape. You can, he advised that it was, and my question is, will the employees get their raise as it was stated in the 2019 budget, 5%, or if they're not getting 5%, what are they going to get? Or if they're getting anything?
If I recall, it was in November, and I may
Okay.
have said Thanksgiving, meaning the month of November. No, it will not be 5%. The 5% that is set, and Dawn, correct me if I say anything that's not accurate from a financial standpoint. The 5% that was set aside last year has to account for not only merit pay raises, but overtime as well. And between COVID and the 6 hurricanes, there's just no way in God's green earth there's enough money left over in that 5% to give the employees parish-wide a 5% raise. So it will be closer to 1%, 1.1%, which is in line with what the school board's given, which was the parish is given, and what the sheriff's department is given.
So was there any federal money that was given to the parish in terms of makeup for situations? I know we had a lot of storms and different things like that, but we did have our employees come out in the pandemic.
We did, and they were
Left
paid
their families
overtime.
come out and work their butt off.
They were paid overtime.
And overtime, but there was a pay raise that was supposed to have, whether it was 5% or 1%. I feel as though, this is only me talking,
Yeah.
feel that they should have been given something,
And
regardless of, and
It
I
will be-
know the.
that decision will be made
all of
in
the storm-
November.
Excuse me?
that decision will be made in November. So before the end of November. When I said Thanksgiving, I
Next year?
probably should have said that. I should have said
November next year?
What's that?
You talking about November next year?
Talk about this year.
Oh. Okay. You making a decision on whether they're gonna get it or they won't get
They're
it?
getting it.
Or
The
they'll get
exact
it?
dollar amount, whether it's, but it's the difference between 1% and probably 1.8%.
But they will be getting
They will be
something.
getting something. Cost of living raise. And the actual cost of living, if you look at the labor, statistics of Labor and Bureau, is about 1.8%. This is the actual, if you look at CPI.
My question was, did the federal government give us anything
Yes, they did give us
in
money.
compensating us with,
They gave us money from the SAVE Act for COVID. They will also give us money in the situations where they declared emergencies, but we're still trying to collect money from the federal government from Gustav. So that money's not in the bank account yet from any hurricane recovery. I don't think they recovered, they covered salaries or overtime for COVID. Most of the money they gave us was more for electronic communication type technology, sanitizing buildings. But if I'm not mistaken, we didn't get any money for salaries.
so just for the record, we'll be getting something.
Yes.
Okay. Appreciate that. I didn't know, I was told at the last meeting, you said November, that before Thanksgiving, that we would have something for them. And here we are, Thanksgiving the next week, and we don't have anything yet. And what about Christmas?
What about Christmas? That's in
Will
December.
it- Yeah, will they have something about Christmas?
Yes.
All right, thank you very much. My other question, my suggestion, Mr. President, firing of some of the people, some of the workers. I was really outdone with some of it, and the reason being is during the pandemic we have here and the coronavirus and all the stuff that's going on, and 2020 has been a hell of a year. I would have wanted to delay firing folks until this thing is over, because everybody needs their job.
Okay.
Got families, they need their job, and some of the stuff that we went through with some of these firings, I think, for me, that I'm only speaking, that we could have avoided if it wasn't nothing seriously where we had to fire. Then I would suggest we allow them to stay and we'll deal with it after this is all over, because everybody needs their job. They need to take care of their families.
Would you like me to comment?
Yeah, you could.
Okay. You know, COVID or not, we have a job to do, and the checks and balances are in place. This council has that ability to overturn any firing that this administration does, and so those checks and balances are in place for that very reason. And when we have a justified situation or whatever the circumstance, this council, those checks and balances are in place, and we rely on those checks and balances to move this parish forward. And but I do appreciate your opinion.
I would ask that you consider doing what I just asked.
I'll consider it.
I don't, I mean, I really feel heartfelt for some of those that left. And some of them that left was unfortunate for some of those people that had to leave. So, appreciate it. Thank you very much.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Thank you, gentlemen. So I apologize. I didn't realize that I had failed to ask if there were any questions. Forgive me for that, Coach. So, Christelle, welcome.
Thank
It's
you.
been a while.
Thank you. It has.
You have been diligently working, you and your team in Ascension Parish, and we would like to have you update us, please, on what you have done so far and what you have found.
I'd be more than happy to do that, and I very much appreciate being invited to give you this update, because I think that this is important work, and you all had a lot of good input and questions about the scope of services, which is very broad. And so I'm here with my associate, Cody Saucier, one of the people on our team, and if I need backup and more detail, I'm happy to ask him to come up here. So there are many elements to the scope. That's our internal document. That's just a small snapshot of part of the first page. It's a 3-page document where we've broken down the scope of services and created sort of a timeline of priorities and when things will be accomplished. Our initial areas of emphasis have been the Department of Public Works, the Mental Health Unit, and the Public Health Unit. And we're just going to start talking about finance and accountability. So that's what I thought I would talk about with you this evening. So when we obviously, we have a fairly good knowledge of the parish, but things change, people change, and leadership changes, and that does change things. So we started out in DPW by conducting about 40 interviews, which is quite a lot. We took a real deep dive in the different areas: vegetation, drainage, pavement, and fleet, and almost began from the bottom up. So we had a cross-section of employees. Vegetation chose their people to interview, and they were all supervisors, so we probably need to go back there for sure and talk with some of the frontline workers. We would like to follow up those interviews with some focus groups and a survey for all DPW employees, because no matter how many people you speak with as a sample size, there are other people who have legitimate ideas and thoughts, and so we want to give everybody a chance to give us their input. And then from there, we'll finalize our recommendations and an implementation plan in working with your DPW director and the administration. But I did come with some highlights of what we've heard so far. So it's no surprise that an organization as large and complex, we have communication issues. I've almost never met an organization that doesn't have some kind of communication issues. Top down, with people understanding the priorities and expectations, and also between divisions. And so DPWs often operates in silos, and so they don't feel the need necessarily to cross-train between areas, much less inside of areas. We see a lot of opportunity for extending people and productivity, and even possibly equipment, although that was a non-starter, really, with a lot of your managers when we talked about that. People need training. They need leadership training. I know that Ron is very much attuned to that, and training for their managers and supervisors. You know, you do a real nice job of bringing in someone, and if they're a good mechanic or they're a good tech one, and they have a good work ethic, they get a chance to move up. Unfortunately, it's not a transferable skill set to necessarily be a trained supervisor, and so we're paying for that. That's not unusual in a public organization, but giving people the skills that they need to be good supervisors, I think, would go a long way. We also need formal training on equipment and job readiness. People told us over and over again that they come in and really receive no orientation or very little orientation. Some people have been here a while, and their fellow employee says, "Hey, you want to learn how to operate this equipment?" And then they have some on-the-job training, and some of that's better in some cases than others, but we really need a formalized training program, and you just heard about the new fleet director. We talked a lot about that with him, because obviously he gets a lot busier, and our equipment downtime goes up when we have people who are not trained to effectively operate the equipment, and that came up in different sorts of ways. There are some people who are uncomfortable with computers. They really could benefit, although they don't want it. They really need some computer training. And you just heard about MyPermit whether you stay with that system or go to a different system, you really need sort of widespread training. The people who actually are doing the jobs need to be able to pull reports or make sure that things are inputted correctly. So we're strong supporters of that. Again, back to equipment, there is not a preventive maintenance program. There's not really a good maintenance program in place right now. And we picked up on something that's not unusual. As equipment is purchased, if there's not good input from the users, it's quite possible that the wrong equipment or the wrong part is purchased, and or there's variability from one year to the other, from one purchase to the other, and that makes it so much more complex. The amount of parts that you need, the things that the skill sets, and obviously, you know, the fleet, they really don't want you to be able to fix your own things. So it makes it harder and harder as we go, and I think leadership is very attuned to that. I was really excited to hear some of the plans and the backgrounds of some of the people who I think are going to do a good job of bringing that in. We do need to get a better communication with purchasing and figuring out why things take so long. You have equipment that is offline for way too long, and you know we're not exactly sure. But, you know, it's just like bringing your car to the dealership. If you're not calling and saying, "Is my car ready?" Gee, you told me it would be 2 days, and now it's on the third day. And even if purchasing was doing that, they can't communicate well with the service provider. So good opportunity for improvement, and that's so important to you, especially in vegetation and drainage and pavement, because you have a big investment there. Going a little bit further, people generally like working here. You have issues. There's morale issues, and there's, you know, typical large organization issues, but they would like to know, is there a career path? And generally speaking, it seemed like the more ambitious or people who wanted to stay, wanted to know, where do I go from here? And so we think that that would be very helpful. There's also some areas with no succession planning, and, the very first morning we started interviews, we found out that there's someone with a certification who's getting ready to retire, and there's really no one else who has that certification or could even get it in time. There's a workaround for that, so the parish would not be in trouble, but there just simply hasn't been attention put to that. And that's oftentimes an HR function, but you really need the leadership of that department to participate. A lot of employees talked about wanting the parish president and other leaders to come out to DPW and meet directly with them in their location and place of work. Some want regular meetings and really want a lot more face time than others. But some of this was driven because there are not necessarily clear priorities and expectations in all areas. And so it was from top down. It was frontline workers as well as managers on occasion who mentioned that. But I think that part of that is a search for good communication again and to really understand the parish's priorities. I'm so thrilled that you had the presentation that you had a few minutes ago because you really do need some data and metrics. If we begin to set priorities, then how do we keep score? I mean, if we don't have metrics, if we don't know what the expectation is, how many miles can someone on a mowing machine mow on a good day within a certain period of time, we just don't have those answers for the parish, and that will really, really help. There are people working on solutions, as you heard, but some of it is bolt-on or extensions of software that you already have. You may need some new software in some cases. And then finally, and this is by no means a comprehensive list, these are just really the highlights. There's a lack of clarity about how to handle employee performance problems. And we saw this surfacing in different ways. Some people feel comfortable, supervisors and managers, and others feel very uncomfortable. There was a lot of talk about being written up and what gets written up and who gets written up. We even sort of had a case where someone was written up and, we kind of thought the supervisor should have been written up. And then you kind of waited to hear other people describe the same situation so you could figure it out. And so there needs to be clarity. And we would envision in the training, for example, that your HR director would come in and talk about the personnel manual, what's expected of people, and then what happens. So I'll just give you a little snippet. Some of you are in industry or have been in the business world for a long time. If someone makes a mistake and it's not an egregious mistake, it's not real bad, but don't do that again. Can they get a verbal warning that's written down? But then if they don't do it again in 90 days, can it go away, or a year, or whatever it is? Well, not everybody agrees what to do with that. And so if you're trying to have true progressive discipline that's documented, so that unfortunately if someone is not doing their job, you really do need to have consistency across the board on that. So that's not going to be that hard to fix, but it really is an issue. And I will just say that as a result, you do have some people who are not doing their job. They're not coming to work on time. They're not calling in when they're not going to come in. And this is mentioned by their coworkers, honestly, because they feel like they're carrying the load when somebody's not doing that. So we're going to try and tighten some of that up as we go forward. Let me shift to mental health and public health, give you an update there. The night that I came before you to talk about the scope, we had a broad scope from Our Lady of the Lake to bring in subject matter experts into the mental health and public health area to see what is the level of service we're providing to our citizens, and how we compare, with the number of services that are provided, both with the private sector and with other parishes, which is sometimes hard to figure out. They sent in 2 different teams, one for mental health and one for public health, and they went on site. They've done some observations and collected some data. Mental health, they went to the jail and talked with people in the judiciary, so some of your stakeholders were interviewed as well. And they looked at the processes, everything from intake, how does someone get an appointment, how long does it take to get an appointment, do they get a call back, who is seen, who is referred somewhere else, and what kind of licensing do you need, and do you have the right kind of licensing for all the things that you might be doing for your citizens, and then how are compliance issues handled. They are still gathering some data, so they're not quite finished their work, but our hope is that we will be able to get together next month and begin to pull that together, and then have some recommendations for you, probably maybe by February, so that we can move on that. It's fascinating, and they're doing very good work, so I think we'll have some good information for you. And last but not least, we talked about trying to get a handle on performance and efficiency, and there's someone who has popped up on the radar, recently retired from the House of Representatives, House Fiscal Office, and his name is Patrick Goldsmith. And if you put a gun to my head, I probably couldn't tell you what all those initials are, but I think the first one's Certified Internal Auditor. So having had a long career in public organizations, he was with the House of Representatives most recently for 9 years, but he was also with the Legislative Auditor's Office, and he was the head of their performance audit. And I have met this gentleman. I can't say that I know him, but I did some work with the Fiscal Office a few years ago, and I think his credentials are really impeccable. The thought is that he will come in under that subcontractor part of our contract with you, and that he will be able to help for a few months try and figure out, can we do some performance audits? Can we really, if we're able to collect the data that you just heard about, can we really see how we're doing and how well we're performing? And go into the finance area and see how we can link some of that information together better for you so that you can really understand the performance of the services in the parish. So this isn't finalized. This is just in the works, as we say. But since I was invited now, I thought it would be a good idea to talk about it. He needs a little rest from his years of service with the state before he gets on board. So with that, happy to drill down, give you other information, answer questions, any areas of focus that you want to talk about.
Christelle, I would like to ask, have you had unencumbered access to our departments, to our staff, directors, supervisors?
I feel that we have. We have always gone into processes like this with some sort of kickoff meeting. John Diaz held the kickoff meeting with Our Lady of the Lake and Mental Health and Public Health with your leadership there, with our consulting team and some people from the lake. And cards get exchanged, and people are free to call and go back and forth, so you don't have to keep going through leadership. In DPW, we, as I said, started in vegetation, and vegetation chose who we would interview, and they were all supervisors. But parish president did sit in on interviews, and we did tell people that we wanted them to be candid, and that what they said was confidential. There's a lack of trust of that in DPW, and there's a lot of chatter and sort of gossip and that sort of thing. So we did realize by the second day that there were people going back and talking about things, but it was a good process. And again, I think we got some very good information, and I think we'll be able to continue to get more information through additional interviews and focus groups and surveys. So. Yes, and we have not had anyone refuse to meet with us or, say that we're asking the wrong questions. So far, so good. Lots of times makes people uncomfortable.
Sure.
Yeah.
Have you had same or similar interviews with those folks without their boss in the room? Kind of That would be unnerving to me. I have been in those things. I would not want my boss in the room. If you had access without their boss in the room?
We did not ask for that. We asked for a cross-section of people, really more from the bottom up, in the areas of DPW, and we did have the president in those interviews. And I will tell you that there were probably some disadvantages to that, although there were a lot of people who were happy to be candid. They really kind of wanted to be candid with what
Sure.
they thought he needed to fix. But I think our team agreed that between interviews, there was an opportunity to talk about what we heard. And when we come back with some of these recommendations, that we sometimes have to get a parish president or someone to believe that really it is this bad, or there really is something that you need to know.
They really did say
We heard
that.
it firsthand. So again, and again, there's no problem with going back and having some more. But yes, he did sit in all of them, which is pretty amazing because you get a headache after a while.
Oh, I'm not faulting his will. I'm just admiring his willingness to do it and the length of time I'm sure he dedicated to it. I would like to ask you to do some interviews without someone's boss in the room, their supervisor or their parish president. I'd like to be assured that that they were absolutely candid.
Good.
I would
Happy to
also
do
like
that.
to know if your focus groups, I understand at vegetation, you were given the people that you were going to talk to. You mentioned you were going to do some focus groups. I would like to ask that those be random, so that we know we're getting just what's out there.
Right.
Not what anybody wants you to hear, but what they will hear if they ask.
Good.
So I would appreciate that very much, and I think that's all I have. I'm sure these other gentlemen have something they may want to ask or add. Gentlemen? Chase? Mr. Melanson?
Hey, Ms. Christelle.
Hey, how are you?
Oh, good to see you. I'm really excited about this. A lot of good information. Love constructive criticism. We have a morale problem that's been going on for a while. And we have a bunch of new leadership. We have a new young DPW director who's eager to learn. And the council's excited about this. And even, most importantly, is we want good workers. We want to provide good careers, somebody who's going to come, put in their 30, 40 hard years of work. But at the same time, we're not a staffing service. We're not here, to hire anybody because of who they're related to or anything like that. Everybody needs to step up and put in a hard day's work. And if not, if not, this won't be the place for them, because now more than ever, people expect and demand more of government and our services. And, I think that's a fair ask. So
Right.
I'm excited about this, and I can't wait to see the final.
Yeah,
Thank
good.
you.
Thank you. And your points are well made. Thank you.
Absolutely. Mr. President, you wanted to say something?
Yeah, I first wanted to start by saying it has been an absolute pleasure working with SSA. I was able to sit in. I didn't have any part in the selection process with the grass cutting. It was just supervisors, no employees. I felt, and SSA agreed, that we needed to interview the whole gambit, the low employees, including the supervisors, including upper management above supervisors, so we could get a fuller idea of how does the Tech One feel? How does the $11.42 guy feel? And so I was involved in the DPW selection. I did pull from across groups. I knew some I had met for the very first time. I had never met them before. Some had to remind me that I ran into them public 3 years ago. And of course, I didn't remember, unfortunately. But I just want the employees to know that I encourage them to do interviews without me. I want the employees to know that we're doing this strategically, that I am not just listening to one department and not another, because I'm afraid that was going to happen. They expressed to us that they thought it was phenomenal that I was in the room taking the time to listen to their concerns. And I can tell you, some were brutally honest about me and my lack of performance and my lack of being a DPW and my lack of being there talking to those parish employees and hearing their concerns. So they were appreciative that I was finally doing that. And that's what you saw in one of the comments, that they said, we need to see more of you. You're our leader, and you're not here. And that was probably one of the consistent narratives that was talked directly to me. And so I got to ask them a little bit about, how many times, is it a quarterly meeting? What are you looking for? And so it gave us a great opportunity to exchange and go a little bit deeper on the expectations that they expect from this administration on their suggestions. And that was really beneficial. So I'm glad for them to do some interviews without me. I want those employees to know that I'm not purposely not hearing their concerns, because that was a common theme throughout our interviews. Thank you,
Thank you, sir. Good clarification. Anyone else?
Yes.
Mr. Thomas? Is that your hand? Please, yes, go ahead.
Thank you, Chair. The question and answer that you're talking about, was it done on the other side of the parish?
No, it was not.
Why?
And I'm not sure
Why?
where everybody came to us. So I'm not sure where they came from, where their actual workplace is.
There we go.
Please, Mr. President.
Absolutely. Each department is different, and so we are going to do and sit down with West Bank DPW, because they're their own entity, and they don't function the same, unfortunately, east and west. And so when we don't want to mix the two, because their experiences are different. So when we have them and we sit down with them, we want to give them the attention they need and get the feedback from that. If we just threw them all together, there would be miscommunication and think, well, I think the West Bank concern was this. No, we need to be absolutely sure from these employees what their concerns are and how, because that's a different group. It's funded different, matter of fact, and it's just a different organization. So it's very important that we give them the attention they deserve and not mix the two.
So we just have not gotten to them yet?
That is correct. Yes, ma'am.
Yes, sir. You can follow up.
If things go on, and if previously we've heard this is one parish, right? And again, we talking about the West Bank is different than the East Bank, which they are different. And that's my point. In the 10 months or 11 months I've been sitting here trying to explain to some of that it is different. And it need more attention than the East Bank. I had a friend of mine tell me, asked me a scenario sort of, if I had two kids and one kid was sick, how much attention would you give the sick kid, or the kid that's not sick? You would give the sick kid more attention. Is that right?
Right.
Okay.
Yeah.
So we need help.
Yeah.
That's all.
Yeah. Point well taken.
Yes, sir.
Yes, so we're launching an initiative that we've talked to Councilman Tom about, the early childhood education. That's starting on the West Bank, not on the East Bank. And so we're trying to prioritize, and, we're not showing anybody any preference here whatsoever. It is one parish, but the needs are different, and that's why we're starting this early childhood education initiative on the West Bank first. And it needs it, and we're excited about it. Thank you.
Absolutely.
Mr.
Yes, sir.
You mentioned that the parish, this is one parish, and then we always talk about it, and it is, the only thing that divides this parish is the river.
Right.
I've heard that 200 times. But then there are things that have been said and done that don't add up to what we talking about right now. And then when I hear that, a light bulb go off, and I've heard so much of it. So let's just keep it real.
Thank you, sir. Any other questions? Mr. Lawler?
Yes, Christelle, it sounds like y'all have done a lot so far and have a lot more to do.
Yeah.
So first of all, thank y'all. It's good to hear that we're moving in this direction, because I know it's something that we've been looking at for a long time and it's needed. And thank the administration for moving this direction, because It's not going to be a quick fix, especially with the training. I've talked to the employees myself, and they want the opportunities. It's going to take us some time. So I want them to hear that we do understand that they need it. They need the training, they need the equipment to be working right, and they have the ability to get to it, to do their job. So we hear them on that, thanks to you, and we're going to try and fix that. I think the president and everybody that's been involved in these interviews, which I think there's a lot of benefit to that. I think there's also some benefit, I don't know if you realize this, but you can be intimidating. And it's not just you. And anytime there's a supervisor in there, it can be very intimidating, even if you don't try to be. And I don't think employees always even understand that sometimes they're holding back, maybe, subconsciously, because they're just afraid to say the wrong thing. I'd like to see us, at the very minimum, do a mix of interviews, some without any supervisors, preferably without any other parish employees in there, because I know that there's a concern that parish employees talk amongst themselves, and they don't want this one to rat them out to other ones. So what I'd like to see, if we do interviews going forward, at least have an equal amount, or preferably all of them, but at least an equal amount that is just you, SSA, your employees, and that parish employee.
Gotcha.
Because I think there's something to really be said for that freedom to know that that information is anonymous. One thing that I've been looking at that we can look at in the future with the parish is having a anonymous tip line type of thing, which is run by a third party. It's very important, especially in this day and age, if somebody feels that they've been wronged and they're afraid to go to a supervisor, especially in a close-knit parish, when everybody knows each other, you've got a lot of family that works in the parish. Just, when they see somebody walk into the glass house to go talk to HR or whatever it may be, they're always afraid that, hey, maybe somebody sees me going in here and it's going to get back to somebody. So that's something I think that we could explore, is like an anonymous tip line that's operated by a third-party vendor that, would take the tips, would critically look at them. Because what we also don't want is somebody that's just got a grudge and they're going to call in a complaint against somebody.
Right.
So they would investigate it, and if it's got any merit, then it could move up the ladder. And maybe that's something that y'all can help us look into.
That's an excellent suggestion. It's already come up in the mental health, public health, because, with HIPAA and the privacy issues and treating people for clinical or mental health issues, there are rules, and they do have to do with your ability to stay open. And I think we're trying to do too much of that internally. So another party, I think, would be important. And Coach, Councilman Coach, when you were talking about the West Side, I will tell you the story we heard, that we had a mental health office over there, and in a year, very few people, not even the fingers on my hand, would go to it. And because they didn't want anybody to see them. Exactly what you just said. Small town, and if I'm going there, I don't want people to see me. I'd rather drive to Gonzales or get a ride to Gonzales. Now, I think we can change that. You need those services really across the one parish in a lot of different areas. And I think that with renewed interest in parenting classes and the kinds of things that can be offered, where maybe I'm going to a stress relieving class or a parenting class. I'm not just going to see a mental health counselor. I think maybe we can take a little bit of that stigma off of it. But you're exactly right, that the small town thing came up. So.
Thank you. It sounds like we're moving in the right direction. And Mr. President.
The president, but there are several others up here. So,
Sure.
Mr. President, would you like to go first?
Really briefly, just to answer some of Aaron's comments, because they were dead on. So we started each meeting, and SSA can confirm what we said is, thank you for coming, tell us a little bit about yourself. But first, let us clarify. What we want you to be brutally honest. Nothing leaves this room, no matter what you've heard outside of this room, nothing leaves this room. And it was, most of the time, the three of us. Nobody else was in the room, no supervisors, no directors, and it didn't even matter. The rumor mill had started at DPW, and I didn't tell John or Ruth, which I discuss on a daily basis what's going on, and we all discuss. They didn't even know, and the rumor mill was churning so much, and the employees said that it was a problem. And it was a morale breaker. So these are one of the things we plan on addressing is through leadership and leadership training, how to bring these rumors down and how to be respectful of people when they're seeking guidance from their directors, that they're not going to rat on somebody, but they're just asking important questions on how to move this parish forward and something to do with their job. And so this is definitely one of the things that we plan to address.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Cagnolati?
Thank you so much. Welcome back.
Good to see you.
Thank you for coming. Mental health and public health. Keep in mind, and we up here know this, but Ascension and Jefferson are the only two parishes in the state with a mental health program, a mental health department. I think we should be very proud of that. I think we should nurture it. And also, they're very near and dear to my heart, is public health. And from what I gather, this is my second term, and my first term I went to a lot of the police jury conventions, and we are kind of the envy of a lot of parishes in this state. They don't have what we have.
Right.
So let's keep that in mind going forward. I'm very curious to see what the assessment, and I was curious too as to whether you are made privy to what these observations are, and are you being able to look into that and, find
Yes.
out what they're trying to find out?
Yes, we're working closely with them. I wasn't really sure what our role needed to be, but Rudy Gomez, one of our partners, has a strong healthcare background. He's really the lead, and we have a slightly different team on that one. But they are working very closely to make sure that we're finding out everything we need to find out before we move to the next steps for findings and recommendations and coming back to you. But since you mentioned Jefferson Parish, and you're right, you need to be proud of the fact that you get those millages renewed and you have the opportunity to have a robust set of services. Our Lady of the Lake folks identified Jefferson Parish as a model. And so we have gotten their budget and staffing models and things like that. And they have a pretty neat vision, and so I think you'll hear about that as we find out more. So it's interesting that you mentioned that. You're right on target.
Thank you. Mr. Lambert?
And that's what it was. I was wanting to see what, I know you deal with other parishes, and you interview from a grade tech to a heavy operator, more or less. How are we measuring up with these positions? I mean, I know we have some master mechanics.
You really do.
That's really a lot. That's really a lot to say by employees. And I guess we need to, acknowledge that a little more. And
Yes.
but you around the state, you around these other parishes, and I want to divide Ascension Parish. How is Ascension Parish measuring up to other parishes surrounding?
Yeah, I'm glad you asked me that. And Cody spent more time in the barns of DPW and other parishes than I have, but I've spent a fair amount of time looking at them and assessing them. Some of the parishes, Jefferson included, they have not had the ability to raise pay rates to be able to compete with industry. You all are direct competitors with industry. So some of the best people we found were retired, still young, didn't want to go to the house, didn't want to be with their wife all day. Just one of them actually said that. And but they're very, very talented, and they enjoy the work, and they like the work. They like the equipment, and they like doing things. And some of them are very, very service oriented, and they want to serve the citizens. They want to go out of their way. That's another issue. I'm sure Ron lays awake at night worried that somebody's going to overstep their bounds, and okay, you're trying to help them, but remember, we have limits. So I think that you are blessed with a lot of good people. Honestly, I think that the past few years, when you get a whole lot of new people in, or you get not as much focus on metrics and the work and things like that, I do think that things kind of slide. And when people look around and there's either not enough work to do, or not everybody's carrying their share of the load, or some people haven't been trained to do some of the things they're asking to do, and it's falling on the peer to do that, I think left unattended, that's not going to be a good thing. And you will end up with everybody staying forever because you got good benefits, and why would I ever leave? Instead of, we're a high-performing team, and a lot of people want that. They really do. They want to be challenged. They want to know what they're accomplishing and be recognized for it. But I think that if we're not careful, you know, some of that will be covered up, and some of the talented people and you know, they're looking around, they're not necessarily seeing other people who really know what to do and are self-directed. Puts a lot of pressure on your frontline supervisors. So we've got a lot of folks, but you're a big parish, you've got a lot of needs. And so I think things like the scheduling, that's really variable from one supervisor to another. There's not a standard there. There's some basic things that I think could be improved. All that being said, I think that you're doing a good job of attracting and keeping good people. Good people tell other good people this is a good place to work when you retire. You ought to come over here and look at this. That's not a bad thing. Now it can be, but in this case, I think they're looking for other good people. So I very much appreciate you asking for that. And I want to tell you something. There are some parishes that are in deep, deep fields of hurt. They can't get permit technicians. They can't get, I mean, let's not even talk about a master mechanic. You know, they're getting basic people pulled away as soon as they get a certification, they're out of there. And so you have a lot to be proud of. But you do have resources, just like in mental health and public health, and you need to make sure that you're really using them in the way, and I know you've said this many times, to give the citizens the level of service they deserve. But you're still right on top now. So the trick is, do the citizens feel that way? And will you be able, over the next couple of years, to make them believe that they are getting a higher level of service? And that there are ways to do it. We think we can come back to you with some thoughts about that.
Any other questions? Mr. Wagasback.
I just have a quick one, because I know we've spent a lot of time on it. But as we move through projects, and, you know, this is great data, and glad to hear about this report. I'd like to see a little more, you know, can we start, and if we've had it, I apologize, but more on timelines. Like, as we talk about what we're doing today, as Coach is asking about the West Bank, I feel like that's something that's lacking sometimes, is what's a timeline, so that, you know, deadlines are good. Sometimes they put pressure on people, but it's really good to know where we're at. Are we behind? Are we ahead? So.
Right. Right.
And, you know, just something to know where we're headed, when we're going to get the deliverables, and then, you know, what's the action plan and who's responsible for it. You know, I'd like to see.
We're going to have that, because there are too many things that need to be improved on or have potential. So there's got to be a prioritization.
Right.
And I think that if it's done well, then it does provide that tracking mechanism that you all can track. You can put it on the website. People can look at it.
Right.
But you know, I just must tell you this. We talked about a recommendation in the interviews, and I haven't been back in a couple of weeks, and I came in and I said, okay, you know, let's start listing out, you know, recommendations or whatever. And I said that. John D., I said, oh, we already did that. And that's like moving at the speed of light for government. But you got to know that's a priority. And I think after, you know, hearing something over and over again, it was apparently a priority. So I've got it. I couldn't agree with you.
And yeah, and look, I'm asking you, but it's also a comment for the administration.
Sure.
As we collect a lot of data, I think it's important to have a plan for what we're going to do to that data.
Right.
Who's responsible, those types of things. So,
Yes, and who's responsible is important too.
Right.
So, yeah, good point.
Mr. President.
So in establishing that timeline, due to the fact that the parish is so big and the interviews take so time, that we spent two days full just on DPW, a full day just on vegetation, and then countless hours with the health department. What we'd like to do is present some results on that in phases, so that we don't wait to an entire study, because the amount of information will be a mega overload. So if we can address these in stages, and let's get that timeline to y'all and get some feedback, because if we did it to the end, it would be so overwhelming. And because each department is unique in itself, it would just be a complete overload. So if we can get that timeline to y'all and get some feedback, that would be great.
No, I appreciate that. And I mean, yeah, it doesn't matter to me what the timeline is as long as we do have one, so. And I think that's important. You saying doing it in phases, this is overwhelming. I mean, even all the data and the efficiencies you guys are looking at in parallel with this stuff, I mean, I think a timeline on all that would be good, so. Thank you.
Thank you, Dow. Good point. Any other questions? Christelle, any comments you want to make?
May I just make one comment? I
Absolutely.
can't remember who talked about setting expectations when you do things, but I think that the people who have been interviewed, the supervisors and managers who, have people who are leaving the field to come be interviewed, you set expectations. And I think if Ron went back and said, yeah, in about 6 months, the consultants are going to give us they're going to go to the council with their recommendations, I think we would lose all the momentum. So some of it's good momentum, some of it's, what are they going to recommend? But I think, that you do create some momentum and expectations, just even in the form of meetings, timetable for meetings. And then Ron is held to that and, who's going to be at what meetings and that sort of thing. So, and borrowing what Parish President just said, I do think it would be overwhelming to come back to you with a big book. So let's not do that. We started, DPW is one of your most visible to your citizens in your districts. And so it was a great place to start. We're getting just a lot of cooperation there. So I think that, and then the mental health, public health, I think that, especially with COVID, that's going to be a winner. So, we won't wait until the very end to come back.
Very good. Christelle, it's been a joy.
It's good to see
for
you.
all of us for
Thank
the
you.
number
Thank
of
you for
years that we've
trusting
worked
us.
together.
We love working
We're
with you.
excited about a timeline for an outcome.
Yes.
And I'm very pleased. I want to make this comment public. Christelle has shared with me that the cooperation she has received from the administration has been outstanding, and I'm always happy to hear that. And the number of members of this council who have spoken with her, helped her to understand what they hear, has been helpful to her. So I'm very grateful to you and your team for all the work that you're doing on behalf of our team and our citizens.
Thank you very much. And you know how to find me if you need me.
Thank you.
Absolutely. Thank you. Okay, now, this might be item number 7, the consent agenda.
Approval of the Buchard Horn Supplement Number 1 to Task Order Number 2 for the Move Ascension Project, MA 1810, Roddy Road at LA 931 Roundabout. Renewal of the audit engagement contract for the 2020 audit, Falk and Winkler. Approval of Project Erie Westlake Vinyls Company for participation in the ITEP under the Post-Executive Order 2018 rules. Approval of Project Pioneer Veolia North America Regeneration Services for participation in the ITEP under the Post-Executive Order 2018 rules. Approval to pay remaining balance of $39,936.48 on invoice 2948 with Crescent Multimedia Solutions for the sound system for the jury assembly room at the new courthouse. Participation agreement with St. Bernard Parish Sheriff for housing of juveniles renewal. Change order number 2 to contract between Ascension Parish Government and Sienna Construction LLC for the Ascension Parish Jail Women's Dormitory renovation for an additional $14,934.54. Change order number 3 to contract between Ascension Parish Government and Sienna Construction LLC for the Ascension Parish Jail Women's Dormitory renovation for an additional $26,236.70 to provide material, labor, and install 4 hollow metal security windows and an additional 17 days. Change order number 1 to the master contract between Ascension Parish Government and ArcSmart LLC for the Lamar Dixon Expo Center Lake solar lighting repairs for an additional $13,380. Substantial completion for the Modest Fire Station parking lot, home and commercial maintenance, doing business as HCM Buildings. Cooperative endeavor agreement between National Water Infrastructure LLC, formerly known as Ascension Sewer LLC, to supply certain sewage treatment services to Renaissance Treatment Plant to add an additional amount of $42,000 from July 2020 through December 2020 and a renewal amount of $84,000 for the 2021 year. Amendment number 1 to master contract for professional services between All South Consulting Engineers and Ascension Parish Government to increase the total contract amount by an additional $150,000 to be added to task number 3 for COVID-19 response and future disasters. Total amount of task order will not be a not-to-exceed amount of $275,241.22. Renewal of master contract for temporary staffing with Disc Writer, Inc., total contract amount of $50,000. Renewal of master contract for temporary staffing with Lofton Industrial Services, total contract amount of $50,000. Bid items to accept the lowest responsive bid, SAF Coat Infield Top Dressing Greenpoint AG, $148.75 per ton. Hewing Irrigation Products, $148.75 per ton. Blinker sign, LED stop sign R1 and anti-vandal mounting kit, K&K Systems Inc., $920 each. 2020 80 feet articulating boom lift all access LLC, $125,600. Ascension Parish Government Bridge Load Ratings Off System Bridges RFP Project BG 2020-01 Huval and Associates Inc. Disaster Debris Monitoring Natural Disaster RFP Thompson Consulting Services. Polyvinyl Chloride Sewer Drainage Pipe Coburn Supply Company. Seabro Road Safety Widening Bluff Road, LA 928 to LA 73, Command Construction LLC, $2,389,389.89. Henry Road at Highway 930 Roundabout, McGee Excavation and Development LLC, $1,342,000. Donaldsonville MCC Filter Plant Electrical System Upgrade Project PM 2008-001 Doyle Electric Inc., $226,000. Reinforced concrete pipe and arc pipe Capital Concrete Products. Corrugated polyethylene pipe, tees and fittings, core and main. Shaving screen cottonwood or white pine shavings, S&S Farms, $4.50 per bale. Pumped sand and river silk combined, Renee's Industries. 3M Street Road Name Signs, Traffic Control Products of LA. Limestone bid, 57 gray and 610 gray operating material, Renee Industries.
Make a motion.
Does anyone wish to remove any item from the consent agenda? We have a motion by Mr. Lambert, a second by Mr. Robert to approve the consent agenda. Are there any questions? Any objections? Hearing none, the consent agenda is approved. Item 8, general business. A, approval of substantial completion, Hillaryville Treatment Plant Refurbishment, Eagle Industrial Parish Project Number PM 20-06-006. That is Mr. Dean's project. Do you have
Motion
any?
approved.
Have a
Motion.
motion by Mr. Melanson, a second by, well, somebody over here, Mr. Mr. Mason. And are there any questions? Any objections? Hearing none, that motion passes. B, amendment to a master contract with CES in the amount of $50,000 for subsurface investigations of road failures within the Pelican Point subdivision.
Motion.
I have a motion by Mr. Robert, second by Mr. Lawler. Are there any questions? Any objections? Hearing none, that motion passes. Item C, approval of cooperative endeavor agreement between Ascension Parish Council and ACUD number 2 to clarify and transfer ownership, if necessary, of sewer assets from ACUD number 2 to the parish of Ascension. This was put on at my request, and Mr. Parrington will give you the generals.
Yes, we talked about this at the ACUD number 2 meeting. This is to clarify that in the dedication of the plats, these items were dedicated to the parish, although they've been carried on the books as ACUD number 2. And so we just try to clarify the ownership of them.
Motion.
Have a motion by Mr. Lawler, a second by Mr. Mason. Are there any questions? Any objections? Hearing none, that motion passes. Item D, a resolution, ENG 2020-102, project commitment for STBG 200K funding for fiscal years 2023 to 2026.
Motion.
Mr. Chu, have a motion by
Second.
Mr. Mollishaw, second by Mr. Mason. Are there any questions? Any objections? Hearing none, that motion passes. Item number 9, introduction of ordinances. A, introduction of an ordinance to amend the Ascension Parish Code of Ordinances to add Section 18-115- abolishment of Ascension Consolidated Utilities District Number 2.
Motion to introduce.
Have a motion to introduce by Councilman Wausau. Thank you very much. Item number 10, public hearings. A reading of an ordinance to amend the 2020 budget and adopt the 2021 budget for the parish of Ascension. Mr. Parrington.
Yes. These are additional amendments to the 2020 budget and additional amendments to the 2021 budget. I'll do the 2020 budget first. Operating budget, West Ascension Drainage expenditure and other financing uses, engineering fees, non-capital increase by $45,000 for engineering services for Louisiana Watershed Initiative. Criminal Court Fund, expenditures and other financing uses. Operating supplies increased by $45,000 for additional courtroom supplies. Animal Services Fund, expenditures and other financing uses, appropriations, Caris House increased by $350,000 due to the fact that this expenditure was inadvertently left out of the 2020 amended Animal Services Fund budget. Parish Utilities of Ascension, revenue and other financing resources. Water revenues increased by $100,000 to adjust water revenues to anticipated year-end revenues. Capital budget, wastewater and construction, expenditures and other financing uses. Contract payments, capital decreased by $1 million for the Parish Utilities of Ascension intake structure relocation project. Park construction, expenditures and other financing uses, contract payments, capital decreased by $150,000 for projects to install new poles and LED lights at various parks. Now, these are additional amendments to the 2021 budget. Operating budget, special revenue funds, West Ascension Drainage funds, expenditures and other financing uses, engineering fees, non-capital decreased by $45,000 for engineering services to Louisiana Watershed Initiative that will be done in 2020. Animal Services Fund, expenditures and other financing uses, appropriations, Caris House increased by $350,000 due to the fact that this expenditure was inadvertently left out of the 2021 Animal Services budget. Enterprise Internal Services Funds, Parish Utilities of Ascension, revenues and other financing sources, water revenues increased by $306,000 with additional revenues earned from ACUD number 1 and installation of new meters. Grant revenues increased by $239,000 for the 2018 HMGP FEMA generated grant. Transfer in water wastewater construction fund decreased by $200,000, no longer needed. Expenditures and other financing uses. Appropriations and grants non-capital decreased by $100,000 due to the fact that the CWEF grant is already listed in the appropriations and grants expenditure, capital expenditure code. Acquisitions equipment decreased by $50,000. Acquisitions vehicles decreased by $70,000. Capital budget, watershed construction fund, expenditures and other financing uses, contract payments, capital increased by $1 million for the Parish of Utilities Ascension intake structure relocation project. Transfers out, Parish of Utilities decreased by $200,000, no longer needed. Park construction, expenditures and other financing uses, engineering fees, non-capital increased by $50,000 for the new poles and LED lights at various park projects. Contract payments, non-capital increased by $950,000 for the new poles and LED lights at various park projects. Contract payments, capital decreased by $851,000 for the new poles and LED lights at various parks projects. Now I'm going to read the budget. Ordinance for amending the 2020 budget and appropriating the year 2021 budget. Whereas a revision of certain budgets for the 2020 budget year for certain funds has been prepared and submitted to the council as follows. 2020 operating funds, fund balance. In general, we had a deficit of $1,132,300 for a fund balance of $17,763,479. Road and Bridge, deficit $384,000 for a fund balance of $299,167. West Ascension Drainage, East Ascension Major Drainage, deficit $3,733 for a fund balance of $27,878. $27,878,525. West Ascension Drainage, deficit $98,000 for a fund balance of $1,450,793. Sales and Use Tax District Fund Number 2, $14,000 for a fund balance of $152,363,000. Sales and Use Tax District Number 1, deficit of $1,094,500 for a fund balance of $17,041,327. Criminal Court Fund, deficit of $29,000 for a fund balance of $134,960. Health Unit, $467,500 for a fund balance of $4,077,477. Mental Health, $1,069,500 for a fund balance of $9,680,510. Fire District Number 2, deficit of $98,500 for a fund balance of $1,742,266. Recreation deficit $1,679,500 for a fund balance of $4,828,317. Animal Services, $314,500 for a fund balance of $314,500. Lighting District Number 1, $21,000 for a fund balance of $475,826. Lighting District Number 2, $59,500 for a fund balance of $409,778. Lighting District Number 3, $32,500 for a fund balance of $311,240. Lighting District Number 4, deficit of $6,000 for a fund balance of $161,046. Lighting District Number 3, deficit of $603,000 for a fund balance of $2,631,448. Lighting District Number 7, $4,500 for a fund balance of $88,554. Ascension Jail Fund, $264,500 for a fund balance of $389,483. Law Officers Court Fund, deficit of $18,000 for a fund balance of $42,788. HUD Section 8, 0 for a fund balance of $440,229. Judicial Expense Fund Parish Court for deficit of $232,000 for a fund balance of $122,247. Fire District Number 1, $21,000 for a fund balance of $3,201,762. Council on Aging, $122,800 for a fund balance of $2,213,135. 23rd Judicial District Fins Fund, deficit of $16,000 for a fund balance of $10,916. FEMA repetitive loss, acquisition elevations, deficit of $655,000 for a fund balance of $778,325. Fire District Number 3, a deficit of $568,500 for a fund balance of $12,173,888. Brookstone Subdivision Road District, $3,000 for a fund balance of $3,000. Cambry Oaks Subdivision Road District, $3,000 for a fund balance of $3,000. Amelia Cole Subdivision Road District, $500 for a fund balance of $500. Highland Trace Subdivision Road District, $3,500 for a fund balance of $3,500. Jamestown Crossing First Filing Road, $1,500 for a fund balance of $1,500. Jamestown Crossing Second Filing Road District for $3,000 for a fund balance of $3,000. Villas at Rosewood Subdivision Road District, $500 for a fund balance of $500. Library Bond Fund, $14,500 for a fund balance of $403,006. Sales Tax District Number 1 Sinking Fund, deficit of $112,000 for a fund balance of $956,577. Sales and Use Tax District Number 2 Sinking Fund, a deficit of $3,500 for a fund balance of $928,884. East Ascension Major Drainage Sinking Fund, $6,500 for a fund balance of $707,697. West Ascension Drainage Sinking Fund, fund balance of $59,609. Fire District Number 1 Sinking Fund, a deficit of $27,500 for a fund balance of $106,212. ACUD Number 1 Sinking Fund, $3,000 for a fund balance of $426,600. $683. ACUD number 1 reserve fund, $500 for a fund balance of $64,873. Lamar Dixon Expo Center's a deficit of $204,000 for a fund balance of $1,053,354. ACUD number 2, $95,000 for a fund balance of $357,666. ACUD number 1, deficit $125,000 for a fund balance of $49,673. Parish Utilities of Ascension, a deficit of $701,000 for a fund balance of $707,662. Ascension Parish Insurance Fund, deficit is $36,000 for a fund balance of $4,002,294. Parish Maintenance Fund, $20,000 for a fund balance of $1,206,825. Dental insurance deficit of $3,500 for a fund balance of $86,185. Road construction fund deficit of $839,500 for a fund balance of $18,141,483. Move Ascension fund, a deficit of $3,387,500 for a fund balance of $29,559,130. Infrastructure Projects Fund, a deficit of $355,000 for a fund balance of $2,905,900. Lake District Construction Fund, $775,500 for a fund balance of $1,074,775. East Ascension Major Construction Fund deficit $914,000 for a fund balance of $46,297,080. Jail Construction Fund, a deficit of $642,500 for a fund balance of $32,357. Courthouse Construction Fund, deficit of $21,772,500 for a fund balance of $45,074. Office Building Construction Fund, $51,500 for a fund balance of $851,574. Animal Services Construction Fund, $400,000 for a fund balance of $400,000. Health Unit Construction Fund, a deficit of $529,000 for a fund balance of $219,509. Fire District Number 1 Construction Fund, deficit $4,905,000 for a fund balance of $3,089,189. Fire District Number 2 Construction Fund, deficit $223,500 for a fund balance of $40,838. Fire District Number 3 Construction Fund, a deficit of $774,000 for a fund balance of $538,027. Wastewater Construction Fund, a deficit of $2,934,500 for a fund of $11,887,419. I'm sorry. LCDBG Lemonville Sewer Project 0 for a fund balance of $89,893. CDGB Construction Fund, fund balance of $1,520,108. Hazard Mitigation Grant Fund, a fund balance of $121,485. Dedicated Special Projects Fund, 0, fund balance of 0. Park Construction Fund, $1,137,500 for a fund balance of $5,653,031. Whereas a proposed operating budget for the year 2021 includes revenues of $109,196,700 plus required fund balance of $2,278,500 for a total equal to $111,975,200 and all expenditures of $107,150,700. Capital budget includes revenues of $2,720,500 plus required fund balance of $78,555,000 for a total equal $80,775,500 and expenditures of $85,600,000. Therefore, total operating and capital budget revenues plus required fund balance equals a total of $192,750,700 and expenditures equal $192,750,700. Intra-fund transfers are $51,362,000. Whereas the Ascension Parish Council has reviewed and considered such proposed budget and made revisions of the same. Whereas says proposed budget was duly set after proper notice to the public for public hearing, which was held on November 19, 2020, as required by the revised statute of the State of Louisiana, Ascension Parish Home Rule Charter. Therefore, be it ordained by the Ascension Parish Council of the State of Louisiana, Section 1, 2020 amended budget, that the amended budgets prepared for 2020 are approved and appropriated by the Ascension Parish Council with the stipulation that the transfer from the funds of Sales and Use Tax District Number 1 fund to the general fund, Road and Bridge Fund, the Criminal Court Fund, in the amount necessary to maintain a balanced fund will not exceed the amount authorized in the budget. The Recreation Fund is allocated 10% of the net 1% Sales and Use Tax District Number 1 revenues as an additional source of funding. Funding is also provided by an allocation to the Sales and Use Tax District Number 1 Bond Sinking Fund and FINS, Families in Need of Services, to the extent that the resulting revenues of the Sales and Use Tax District Number 1 Fund exceed expenditures and transfers, and after an adequate fund balance equal to 6 months of expenditures is maintained, then such excess will be transferred 75% to the Mega Infrastructure Projects Construction Fund and 25% to the Recreation Fund. B, the one-third net of the Sales and Use Tax District Number 2 revenues collected for fire protection shall be shared by Parish Fire Protection District Number 1 at 65%, by Ascension Parish Fire Protection District Number 2 at 13%, and by Ascension Parish District Protection Number 3 at 22%. All unexpected appropriations will lapse December 31st, 2020. The Section 2 to 2021 budget. That the budget proposed for the year 2021 is approved and adopted and appropriated with the following provisions. Expenditures not contemplated in the operation of government of Ascension Parish as set forth in this budget ought to be approved in accordance with provisions of Article 7, Section 701 of the Home Rule Charter of Ascension Parish. Transfer of funds from Sales and Use Tax District Number 1 Fund to the General Fund, the Road and Bridge Fund, and the Criminal Court Fund in the amount necessary to maintain a balanced fund, but will not exceed the amount authorized in the budget. The Recreation Fund is allocated 10% of the net 1% Sales and Use Tax District Number 1 revenues as an additional source of funding. Funding is also provided by an allocation to Sales and Use Tax District Number 1 Sinking Fund and FINS, Family in Needs of Services, to the extent that the resulting revenues of the Sales and Use Tax District Number 1 Fund exceed expenditures and transfers, and after an adequate fund balance equal to 6 months of expenditures is maintained, then such excess will be transferred 75% to the Mega Infrastructure Project Construction Fund and 25% to the Recreation Fund. The one-third net of the Sales and Use Tax District Number 2 revenues collected for fire protection shall be shared by Ascension Parish Fire Protection District Number 1 at 65%, by Ascension Fire Protection District Number 2 at 13%, by Ascension Fire Protection District Number 3 at 22%. Funding to provide for the 2020 encumbrances hereby approved and appropriated. All unexpected appropriations will lapse December 31st, 2021. This ordinance has been submitted to a vote. The vote thereon was as follows.
Chair would entertain a motion to open the public hearing.
Motion to open.
I have a motion to open by Councilman Turner, a second by Councilman Cagnolati. I have one green card, Mr. David Bernard. Hi, David. Nice to have you with us this evening.
Very much.
You didn't indicate whether you wanted to speak or not, but I'm going to take it that you want to speak.
I'm going to be brief because I realize this is going on a while.
Thank you.
My name is David Bernard. I'm the Vice Chair of the Animal Services Board. I really appreciate having the opportunity to serve the taxpayers of this parish. Quickly, I'd like to thank some people, and the reason I'd like to thank them is because while we feel our board is really good at animal services and things like that, we know very little about how government works. So I'd like to thank, of course, the board that I work with, Ms. Charlotte Roussel, who apologizes for not being able to be here tonight, Ms. Nina Wager, and Dr. Fenton Lipscomb. I'd like to extend a whole lot of thanks to President Quintmaw's office, especially Ruth Phillips. She's been very instrumental in getting us the data that we need to be able to make our decisions. I also would like to thank Councilman Michael Mason. He's helped us wade our way through these governmental proceedings, something that's totally foreign to us. We have submitted a budget, and we feel that it is still an interim budget. We recently got data earlier this week, and we're still digesting that. The only reason I want to talk to you is because I have some concerns, and I want to explain what our process is going to be. The first couple of years of the tax, there were some expenses that did not allow us to put a lot of money aside for the new shelter. And that concerns us a lot because we feel like that's obviously the biggest part of the tax, the animal services tax. And we want to make sure that we have enough set aside that we can properly build a facility that the parish can be proud of. The first year's first and second year's budget contains some repairs to the existing shelter because we felt upon our inspection there were conditions that were really not livable, and unfortunately the bill for those repairs was quite substantial. It's in the neighborhood of about $500,000. But we really felt that that was a necessary thing to continue to provide the level of services for the animals and the citizens of the parish. So we begrudgingly approved that because we next couple of years, we really do need a facility that will continue to function for us. We're continuing to investigate other sources of revenue. We highly encourage Kara's House to continue their fundraising efforts, as that may be a substantial part of their budget, and we would encourage all the citizens of the parish to help Kara's House in those support efforts. There are some other issues that I won't get into the details, but we're looking at all of the different aspects of where other sources of money other than the tax comes from, like rabies tags and things like that. So we want to explore all of the possibilities to make sure that we're very judicious and fair with the money that we have. We take this responsibility greatly, and once again, I want to emphasize that we want to provide a very good product for the citizens of the parish, and we feel that this shelter could possibly be an attraction. I heard earlier some talk about tourism and things like that. This isn't directly related to that, but it certainly enhances the well-being of the people in the parish, and we would hopefully be able to continue on in those efforts. I had some other information, but I'm going to cut it short because, like I say, y'all have had an exhausting evening. I am available anytime if anybody would like to get in contact with us, discuss any other information or other items, and we would certainly be open to any suggestions that y'all may come up with. And we certainly hope to work with the parish president along those lines. I think he's had some great ideas, and we hope to work with him in the future to develop this excellent product for the parish.
We are
Thank
grateful to you, sir, for your work.
Oh,
It's
I'm
an
grateful
unpaid job.
I'm grateful for the opportunity, and I'm thankful that I have the time and the attitude to want to be able to do this. It helps me out a lot. I'm retired, gives me time to, feel like they were saying before, I don't want to spend all my time around the house. Gives me some time to do some other things. So, like I say, I really appreciate the opportunity.
Well, we're delighted, sir. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Chair would entertain a motion to close the public hearing.
Motion to close.
We have a motion by Councilman Wausau, a second. Once again, it's over there. Mr. Cagnolati to close the public hearing. Chair would entertain a motion to move the ordinance.
Motion to move.
I have a motion by Councilman Turner, a second by Councilman Cagnolati to move the ordinance. Are there any questions?
One quick question.
Mr. Lawler.
I know it's something we had heard a little bit before, I think it was a couple meetings ago, about 3-year budgeting. Is that something that's on the horizon? And Mr. Diaz, I'll let you elaborate on that.
Yes, it is. In fact, last conversation I had with Patrick Goldsmith, that was a big priority. He's read through all the ordinances, all the audits, read through the budget, and so that's something he's definitely going to focus on.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions? Any objections? Hearing none, the budget amendment is passed. Budget ordinance, excuse me. Item D, Reading of an ordinance to amend the Unified Land Development Code, Section 17, 2043-B, standards for small wireless facilities in the rights-of-ways in the parish of Ascension.
To amend the Ascension Parish Unified Land Development Code, LDC Appendix 2 Development Code, to add Section 17204B, standards for small wireless facilities and rights-of-ways in the parish of Ascension. Whereas the parish of Ascension desires to encourage wireless infrastructure investment by providing a fair and predictable process for the deployment of small wireless facilities while enabling the parish to promote management of the rights-of-ways and the overall interest of the public health, safety, and welfare. Whereas the parish recognizes that small wireless facilities are critical to delivering the wireless access and capacity to advanced technology, broadband, and first responder services to homes, businesses, as well as healthcare, public safety, and educational services providers within the parish. Whereas the parish recognizes small wireless facilities, including facilities commonly referred to as small cells and distributed antenna systems, are deployed most effectively in the public rights-of-ways, and whereas the parish intends to fully comply with state and federal law to the extent it preempts and conflicts with local municipal control. Now therefore be it ordained by the Ascension Parish Council that Appendix 2, the Development Code of Ascension Parish Unified Development Code, shall be amended by adding following Section 17-2043B that will read more fully as described in Exhibit A attached here to and made part hereof. In the event any portion of this ordinance is ever held invalid or unconstitutional for any reason by any court of competent jurisdiction over it, such portion shall be deemed separate, distinct, and independent provisions, shall not affect the validity of remaining portions of the ordinance. This ordinance shall be in full effect as permitted by law. The ordinance submitted to a vote. The vote thereon was as follows.
Chair would entertain a motion to open the public hearing.
Motion to open public hearing.
Motion by Councilman Malasan, second by Councilman Cagnolati to open a public hearing. No comments?
Motion to close.
Have a motion by Councilman Mason,
Second.
second by Councilman Malasan to close the public hearing. Chair would entertain a motion to move the ordinance.
Motion to move the ordinance.
Second.
Have a motion by Councilman Malasan, a second by Councilman Lambert
I'd
to
like
move.
to make a substitute motion.
I'm going to call on
Yes,
you,
ma'am.
sir, to move the ordinance. Let me finish what I'm saying,
Absolutely.
or I get all tripped up, Joe. All right. I have, the chair recognizes Councilman Joel Robert.
Yes, ma'am. I'd like to make a substitute motion. On page 19, under H, aesthetic requirements, number 3, I would like to add item M under number 3, which would be under item L. Item number M shall read, all new poles shall include at a minimum a single 15,000 lumen LED light fixture mounted at a height of 30 to 35 foot above natural ground. Every effort must be made to eliminate or reduce light trespass onto neighboring private property. Light must be installed so that it is directed onto the road surface and not at an angle into the driver's eyes. In situations where a new pole is being constructed, where the street lighting currently exists, the requirement may be waived at the request of the HOA or the homeowner. Where the light cannot reach the road surface or sidewalk, a pole must be attached to resolve the issue. An arm must be attached to the pole to resolve the issue. To extend the light to a point that will reach the road if a road or sidewalk is within 25 feet of tower. And then the rest of the motion as it was.
Thank you. Is there a second for that motion?
I'll second.
I have a second by Mr. Mason. Yes, ma'am.
The motion is a motion to amend. It's not a substitute motion. So
Thank
just
you.
as long as everyone understands, that's the nature of the motion.
Thank you very much. Have a motion and a second. Are there any questions about the amended motion? Are there any objections?
Yes.
Have an objection. There'll be a need for a roll call, Senator. And Mr. Ogeron has had to leave. He was not feeling well. The amended motion fails. The vote was 7-3. And now we will take back up the original motion. Yes, Mr. Lawler?
Actually, I'm also going to offer an amendment. I sent everybody an email, and I think I may have sent it to you also, because I know we're supposed to do it in writing. I don't know if it got to you. But it's pretty brief. Under section T5, A and B, that's the section that we had added dealing with right-of-ways, beautification of the right-of-ways. It creates, I think it's 3 separate areas, just like our traffic impact fees, and the fees that we recover from this are going to be used to beautify the right-of-ways. What I'd like to do is amend section T5A and B to add the words, all vehicle entry points into Ascension Parish, including interstate exits. So it will read, section T5A, use of funds. The funds accumulated within each trust fund shall be used only for A, maintenance and upkeep of right-of-ways and all vehicle entry points into Ascension Parish, including interstate exits. B, landscaping or hardscape improvements within the right-of-way and all vehicle entry points into Ascension Parish, including interstate exits.
I'll second that motion.
Okay, thank you. Just if I may, the reasoning.
I'm sorry.
Oh, it's okay. The reasoning behind this is we are going to have the money coming in, not just to take care of right-of-ways where I think these poles are going to be, but I think we have a real opportunity throughout the parish, because I made a short list: Highway 70 in Donaldsonville, 3127 in Donaldsonville, River Road, east and west side. We have multiple entrances into the parish. Highway 30, 74, 22, Airline, the roundabout at Port Vincent are all areas where people come into our parish. And right now, we don't have anything welcoming our guests into the parish. In fact, what I learned tonight, we could say, hey, welcome to the sweet spot, or something like that. So we certainly can use this money, and maybe in conjunction with President Quintmont had talked about before, the new sweet spot signage to create something welcoming people to our wonderful parish. That is what the amendment does. What it's going to do, I hope, is allow us to use this money to welcome people into our parish. That's it. Thank you.
Very good. So I have a motion and a second for Mr. Lawler's motion. Are there any questions? Any objections? Hearing none?
I'd like to, yeah, go ahead, I'm sorry. This is just for the amendment, right?
Yes.
Yeah, okay, go ahead.
So are there any objections to that motion? Hearing none, the amendment passes. Yes, sir.
I'd like to, I'd like to make a substitute motion to move this back to council so we can reassess different aspects of it. And the reasoning for this is because of the information that I found last minute before this was moved to this meeting. With any questions, I'd love to explain that further to y'all. But my substitute motion is to move this back to council to further discuss this.
So it is proper to move to postpone or to refer to a certain entity. It's not a substitute motion again. And just we want it to be very specific to whom and what reporting.
What is required for me to make a substitute motion?
A substitute motion is a whole new, it's a new language. You're making, are seeking to make amendments, and subsidiary motions. So I just don't want us to get confused on the terminology.
Mm-hmm.
It is proper to move to refer it to the council, or it's proper to move to postpone it. I don't want to put words in your mouth. I don't know which.
So I can't make it as a,
Can't make a substitute, you're not making a substitute motion. You can move to postpone to another meeting. You can move, I heard the word council, so it's like I'm confused on you're seeking to refer it to the council itself, so that's why I'm thinking it sounds like postpone.
no, ma'am. I'd like to refer, I guess, really back to utilities.
Okay, so a member may move to refer to a specific entity, and utilities would be one.
Okay.
So that motion could be made. And it would need a second and a majority to be adopted.
Would you like to repeat your motion then, Mr. Robert?
Yeah. I'll make that motion to move to utilities.
Is there a second to defer to utilities? Hearing none, that motion dies for lack of a second. Now we'll take up the original language of the ordinance with Mr. Lawler's added amendment. Are there any questions about that? Any objections? Have one objection, so Madam Secretary, if you'll open the, thank you. The yeas have that at 9-1. The 5G ordinance is amended. So that ordinance passes. I have a motion by Mr. Dempsey Lambert and a second by Mr. Melanson to adjourn. Thank you very much.